But right now we got to pivot back to Microsoft because those shares, as I pointed out, are falling sharply by more than 11% as the company's CapEx spending plans spook investors, despite the fact that they topped second quarter.
Microsoft might have just broken Windows, and they know it. After years of pushing updates, AI features, and constant improvements, everything started failing at the same time. Users are losing files, PCs are crashing, and trust in Windows is collapsing fast. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how it got this bad, and why 2026 might decide if Windows survives at all. And if you've ever updated your PC and instantly regretted it, this is that situation, but on a global scale. Because on paper, Microsoft looks like it's winning. The company is making money, beating expectations, and growing fast. But behind the scenes, Windows 11 is falling apart. And the scary part is, this didn't happen overnight. It happened step by step, and it all starts with something that was supposed to make Windows better: updates. At first, updates were meant to fix problems, but then something strange started happening. They began breaking things instead. Simple things stopped working. Apps crashed, systems froze, and for many users, the blue screen of death stopped being rare and started feeling normal. Now imagine this. You save your files on your computer. You upload them to the cloud so they're safe. Then you delete them from your PC because you think they're already backed up. But instead of staying safe, they disappear completely. Gone from your computer, gone from the cloud, gone forever. That's exactly what started happening to people using OneDrive. The system got confused and deleted everything. And this is where things get worse. Because instead of slowing down, Microsoft kept pushing more updates, more changes, more experiments, and users had no choice but to accept them, which leads to the next problem. What if people didn't even want Windows 11 in the first place? Microsoft proudly announced that Windows 11 reached over 1 billion devices. That sounds impressive, but the reality is very different. Most people didn't upgrade because they wanted to. They upgraded because they were forced to. Windows 10 support ended, and when that happens, you have two choices: upgrade or risk using an unsupported system. So people upgraded, not because they loved Windows 11, but because they had no other option. That's not real growth, that's pressure. And while all of this was happening, Microsoft made a decision that would change everything. Instead of fixing the system, they decided to add something new, something they believed would be the future. AI. Instead of slowing down and fixing the problems, Microsoft made a completely different decision. They went all in on AI. The idea sounded simple: make Windows smarter, faster, more helpful, and that's where Copilot comes in. At first, it made sense. An assistant that could help you write, search, or organize things faster, but then something changed. Instead of being a tool, Copilot became the center of everything, and that's where things started to break. Because Microsoft didn't just add AI, they pushed it everywhere. Notepad, Paint, File Explorer, apps that were designed to be simple suddenly became more complex. And that creates a very simple question: why? These tools worked because they were fast and predictable. Now imagine opening Notepad to write something quickly, and instead you see suggestions and extra features you didn't ask for. It slows you down, it adds friction, and it changes something that wasn't broken. That's the real issue. Microsoft wasn't improving the experience. They were redesigning it around AI. Instead of asking what users needed, they started asking where AI could be added next. And users felt that immediately. It no longer felt like your computer. It felt like an experiment, like every update was testing something new on you. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Microsoft started calling Windows an agentic OS, which basically means the system starts making decisions for you, suggesting actions, automating behavior, trying to think ahead. And that might sound like the future, but there's a problem. People don't always want their computer to think for them. They want control. They want stability. They want things to just work. And when that control starts to fade, trust disappears with it. Because now every update feels risky. Every change feels forced. And AI stops feeling like a feature and starts feeling like the problem. And just when users were already frustrated, Microsoft introduced something that took this idea even further. A feature that didn't just change how you use your computer, but how your computer sees you. And that's where everything escalates. The feature was called Recall, and on the surface, it sounded useful. Your computer would remember everything you've done, so you could go back and find anything instantly. A file, a message, a website, anything. But here's the problem. To do that, it had to record everything, constantly, in the background, taking snapshots of your activity all the time. And that's where things started to feel uncomfortable, because this wasn't just a tool anymore. It felt like surveillance. Your computer wasn't just helping you, it was watching you. And even if the data stayed on your device, that didn't change how it felt. Because now the question wasn't, is this useful? The question became, do I really want my computer tracking everything I do? And for most people, the answer was simple. No, the backlash was immediate. Users complained, experts raised concerns, and the media started calling it out. Microsoft delayed the feature once, then brought it back again with changes. But by then, the damage was already done. Because this wasn't just about one feature. It confirmed something users were already feeling. Microsoft wasn't thinking about boundaries. They were pushing limits, seeing how far they could go. And this is where trust really started to break. Because once users feel like they're losing control, every new feature feels like a risk. Every update feels suspicious, and even useful ideas start to look like bad ones. Recall became the symbol of that shift. Not innovation, but overreach. And just as this backlash was growing, something even worse happened. Because now, it wasn't just about features people didn't like. It was about systems that stopped working completely. And then, things went from bad to worse. Because in early 2026, Windows updates stopped being just annoying. They became dangerous. We're not talking about small bugs anymore. We're talking about computers that simply stopped working. Black screens, boot failures, systems stuck in endless restart loops. For some users, their PC just wouldn't turn on anymore. And imagine that for a second. You install an update, something that's supposed to improve your system, and instead, it locks you out completely. No files, no access, nothing. And the worst part, this wasn't a rare case. It happened to thousands of people at the same time, which means this wasn't just a mistake. It was a failure at scale. Now here's where it gets even more frustrating. Microsoft's official solution was simple. Uninstall the update and wait. That's it. No instant fix, no real explanation. Just wait for the next update and hope it works. And at this point, users started asking a very simple question. Can I even trust updates anymore? Because updates are supposed to protect your system, not break it. But now, every time a new update appears, it feels like a risk, like you're rolling the dice with your own computer. And this changes how people behave. They stop updating. They delay fixes, they lose confidence in the system completely, and once that trust is gone, it's very hard to get it back. Because now the problem isn't just technical, it's psychological. People expect things to go wrong, and when that happens, even small issues feel bigger than they are. This was the breaking point, not just for performance, but for trust. And once users reach that point, they don't just complain. They start looking for a way out. And that's exactly what happened next. And this is where things get really serious. Because when gamers start leaving, you know something is wrong. Gaming has always been one of Windows' biggest strengths. It was the reason a lot of people chose PC in the first place. Performance, flexibility, freedom. But with Windows 11, that started to change. Games didn't feel as smooth. Performance became inconsistent. CPU spikes appeared out of nowhere. Frame rates dropped for no clear reason, and sometimes everything just stuttered. Now, if you're not a gamer, That might not sound like a big deal, but imagine watching a movie and every few seconds it freezes for a moment. That's what it felt like. Unstable, unreliable, and the worst part is you don't always know what's causing it. Is it the game, the hardware, or the system itself? But over time, a pattern started to appear. It was Windows. And once people started realizing that, they began looking for alternatives. Some moved to consoles like PlayStation, others switched to handhelds like the Steam Deck, and some even moved to Mac, which just a few years ago would have sounded crazy for gaming. But here's the key point. People weren't leaving because they wanted something new. They were leaving because they wanted something stable, something that just works. And that's a huge shift, because when your core audience starts walking away, it's not just a performance issue anymore. It's a credibility problem. And for Microsoft, this was a warning sign, a big one, because if Windows can't handle something as important as gaming, what else can it handle? And that question is what forced Microsoft to finally respond. After all the backlash, after the broken updates, after users started losing trust, Microsoft finally reacted. And this time, the approach was different. Instead of adding more features, they started focusing on fixing what was already there. Internally, they called it a swarming strategy, which basically means drop everything and fix the problems. Engineers were redirected to core issues, crashes, slow performance, apps that randomly stopped working. The goal was simple: make Windows stable again, make it fast again, make it reliable again. And for the first time in a long time, Microsoft openly admitted something important. Users were right. That alone is a big shift, because before this, most updates felt like the company was doubling down, pushing more changes, adding more layers, even when things weren't working. But now, some of those decisions are being reversed. Copilot is being scaled back, certain features are being redesigned or quietly removed, and the focus is moving back to the core experience, just making the system work, which sounds simple, but after everything that happened, it's exactly what users wanted from the beginning. Now here's the real question. Is it too late? Because fixing problems is one thing. Rebuilding trust is something else entirely. And trust doesn't come back with one update or two. It takes time, consistency, and proof. And right now, users are still watching very closely because they've heard this before. Promises of stability, promises of improvement, and then another broken update. So this moment, this shift, it's important. But it's also fragile, because if Microsoft gets it right, this could be the beginning of a comeback. But if they get it wrong again, there may not be another chance. And that's what makes this moment different, because now everything is on the line. At this point, this isn't just a story about Windows anymore. It's something bigger, because what happened here can happen to any company. Microsoft didn't fail because they stopped innovating. They failed because they lost focus on what actually matters. They tried to build the future, but forgot to fix the present. And that's a dangerous mistake, because most people don't want more features. They don't want more complexity. They don't want their computer making decisions for them. They just want something simple, something stable, something that works every time they turn it on. And that's the real lesson here. Innovation isn't about adding more. It's about improving what already exists. Because when you ignore that, you don't just create bugs, you lose trust. And trust is everything. Once users start questioning your system, every update feels risky, every change feels forced, and even good ideas get rejected. That's exactly what happened with Windows 11. Now, Microsoft has a second chance. 2026 could be the year they fix everything, or the year people finally move on. Because users are still watching, still testing, still deciding if it's worth staying. And the next few updates will answer that question. Not the marketing, not the announcements, just the experience. And if you think about it, this pattern isn't just happening to Microsoft. You can already see it starting in other tech companies too. Pushing AI too fast, forgetting the user, repeating the same mistakes, and that's something we're going to break down in another video because it's happening faster than most people realize. So if you want to understand where tech is really heading and avoid getting caught in the middle of these changes, you might want to stick around and subscribe. Not because you have to, but because this is only getting started.